welcome to Aging Disgracefully, a weekly oddcast of seriously funny and sometimes pretty raunchy monologues. I'm Carolyn Meyer, and I've got a story for you. Stay with me for episode number 33, Reinventing Myself, Part 1, My New Life as an Old Lady. Inside every old woman, there's a young chick wondering what the hell happened. How did I end up like this? And what do I do now? I'm talking today about what it's like to be an old lady. To be perfectly honest, I'd much rather be talking about orgasm than ageism. There's plenty of ageism out there, but maybe not so much orgasm. That nice supermarket checkout person who always calls me sweetie, does she call the 30-something woman next in line sweetie? Of course not. Birthday cards for the elderly play heavily on the downside of the age thing. I got a card a few weeks ago showing two elderly women in frumpy dresses and outdated hairstyles, and one old lady says to the other, "It's a little early in the day to wear your do-me sweater, don't you think?" I'm not sure what a do-me sweater looks like, but I can tell you it's probably not something that I would wear. There's one card I really like, though. It says, "You're a lacy red thong and a drawer full of granny panties." I'm given a coffee mug with the motto, "Over the hill and on a roll." Now, I'll buy that on a roll part, but over the hill? Hell no! I've got too much left to do and too much living to do. So let's have a birthday party where the joke gifts don't include the enema kit, the cane, the walker, the bedpan, the box of adult diapers. Instead, how about some interesting sex toys? Maybe a classy new vibrator, lubes in assorted flavors, fancy anal beads, a tasteful butt plug. Now here's the situation. As I've told you in earlier episodes, I've had 3 husbands, all of them now dead. And I've had 3 long-term lovers, and 2 of them are dead, and a third is hiding out in Guatemala. But he might also be dead by now, as far as I know. I long ago lost track of short-termers in between the long haulers, but my third marriage lasted almost 30 years, until that husband, Tony, died a half-dozen years ago. Now, I'm sure it was assumed by my family, including my 3 sons and my best friends, that I'd go through a period of grieving and then I'd continue on with life without Tony, very much the same way it was when he was alive. I'd be writing every day, seeing friends for lunch, going to plays, joining a book club, and perhaps traveling a bit in the company of other women not unlike myself. It would be lonely without Tony, of course, but good friends and family would compensate to some degree for the loss, and I'd live the way other women in my age demographic are assumed to live, expected to live, a comfortable, sexless life. Until I die. But that's not how I saw things then, or how I've seen them since. 9 months after I became a widow, I take off alone to travel to a part of Europe I haven't visited since I was a college student. Sometimes it gets a little lonely, but I'm good at striking up casual conversation, and so my solo trip goes well. By the time I get home, I already have it in my mind that I'm interested in finding companionship. Male companionship. I meet a man in an airport, and between flights we strike up a conversation. We agree to meet for lunch sometime, but when we finally arrange that lunch, he tells me that he's in a long-term relationship and has been for years. So that's the end of that. So, how does one go about meeting eligible men when one is an old lady? I decided to sign up for online dating. My very first experience is with a man who turns out to be a fraudster. And now it's a story I've told before and don't really want to repeat here. It's a jarring experience. but it does encourage me to believe that there may exist at least the possibility of finding a person of interest. And so I persevere. I connect with a doctor in California. He's 30 years younger than I. He says he's attracted to older women. I am intrigued. We email, we talk on the phone, and after a few weeks, we meet. But he's not emotionally available. He makes that clear. And after a few months, it all falls apart. Short time later, another strong attraction. A physicist economist, again in California, and again almost 3 decades younger. Another handsome, personable, bright guy. Another man separated by 1,000 miles and 30 years, and no emotional connection. Add to the list a 50-year-old professor at a university in Texas. There does seem to be a pattern here, doesn't there? Well, by now, I am firmly established as a cougar and as a MILF, an 80-something-year-old MILF, or maybe I'm a GILF. A few other contacts are made, but none interest me. A few more fraudsters make brief appearances, but I'm much better now at detecting them, and there are flirtations that come to naught. Nothing gels. In the meantime, while the cougar is quietly on the prowl, I give up writing for teens and young adults, which I've been doing for decades, all those books, 60 of them lined up on my shelves. And so what do I do instead? After some classes in improv, in which I am decades older than everyone else, including the instructor, I attempt to launch a new career as a comedian. Start slowly, signing up for 5-minute slots doing stand-up at a local bar, getting into longer storytelling, finally creating and performing a solo show. Don't call me young lady. I have reinvented myself. Or at least a part of myself, the intellectual and creative part. But there's still this other part, the physical part, the sexual part. There's no getting away from it, no ignoring it. But face it, there really aren't many men my age who are still alive and viable, shall I say? What's more, those a decade or so younger all describe themselves as retired, and they all want to play golf. I am frankly not interested in men who are retired, nor am I interested in playing golf. I want to find someone who is still vitally involved in his career or is exploring new career options that don't involve golf. I don't know why I have such an onus against golf, but golf just seems to me to be a symbol for all the things that don't interest me. Then comes COVID, and my new life on the stage is canceled, or at least put on hold. And who knows when, or even if, it will ever come back. That's when I pivot and launch my podcast, Aging Disgracefully. Here I am. Even before the pandemic, I decided not to renew my online dating subscription. Total waste of time and effort and money. The hell with it. I will live a celibate life and go to my grave a born-again virgin. Not because I've become virtuous, but simply because I'm not meeting any men who are interesting, emotionally available, sexually attractive, and alive. It's easy enough to keep a vow of celibacy, given there's no one around with whom to break the vow. I almost managed to convince myself that I have now entered into an elevated state of being, a spiritual existence in which sexual pleasure is irrelevant. I will live a life of the mind. I'll keep my body in decent functional shape because the life of the mind requires that I am intellectually alive and vibrant. I will give myself a new identity. I will present myself as a grande dame, a wise and witty elderly woman who holds herself above decadent pleasures of the flesh. Yeah, so how's that working for you? Well, it isn't. The young chick inside, this old woman, isn't ready to give it up quite yet. And so I pivot. I'm almost dizzy from my pivoting, and I reinvent myself once again, this time as a woman who is sophisticated, elegant, ageless. Who knows what might happen? And then something does happen. Something quite remarkable. And once again, my life takes off in a whole new direction. And next week, I'll tell you all about it. Remember, you can read this and other stories on my blog at funnycarolyn.com. Watch the video on YouTube and come back next week for episode number 34, Reinventing Myself, Part 2, A Change of Life. I'm Carolyn Meyer, and I'm still aging disgracefully.